listeners, the camera adds 75 pounds, so I want you to take that into account. So the thing I was saying before, Luke had asked me what was the first thing that jumped out at me about Parsha Re'eh. What I said was actually that at the very beginning it starts, "See, I present before you today a blessing and a curse." And the commentary in the art scroll Chumash that I'm using says that the blessing and curse are not simply promises for the future. One can actually see that people who observe the Torah have a sense of accomplishment, fulfillment, and spiritual growth. And the thing I said was that it reminds me of the way Hasidic Jews will wear the black hat and the coats in kind of, I think they're mimicking the way that the 17th century Polish aristocracy dressed. And the thinking I hear is that it kind of ennobles the Jewish tradition, because this is that's the mic that
maybe pull it back.
Resorted to.
Yeah. See.
Oh crap! Still? You can hear it. Is it better if I talk like this or like this?
So maybe like 4 inches.
Okay, alright.
Sell.
Alright. So I guess we'll do our best.
Yes.
Alright, well, as I was saying, the beginning of the Parsha, where it says that Moshe Rabbeinu is presenting us today with both a blessing and a curse. Shit. I've said it twice. I'll just cut to the chase. That the idea in the commentary is that when you see someone who observes the mitzvot, you can see in their person the spiritual fulfillment and the joy of following the tradition. And I said that in my experience, I have not seen that in people who dedicate their lives to the Jewish tradition, Orthodox Jews most especially. That generally, it seems to me that people they don't give off a vibe of holiness or spiritual growth or fulfillment. That I see much more of that from people who are immersed in other traditions, most other traditions. And I think that a lot of Jews of my ilk have similar experiences. It's part of the reason we're drawn to other traditions. It's because the practitioners seem to have more of something we want, which is those kinds of things that it says here that fulfilling the mitzvot is supposed to do. That sense of a life well lived, and a spiritually and a holy person. So I was wondering whether is this just something that's wrong with us, or is there something that the people who follow the mitzvot are not projecting and ought to be projecting? So I asked Luke what he thought about that.
I tell you what, there's certainly not a lot of feeling in the ethos that it's not good to use. Guys.
do you want to divert off more? Because it would be so cool to.
I don't know how to improve. I'll have to. Let's just keep going.
All right. Okay.
There's certainly not a feeling among most people I know who observe that it is a blessing. Like it's more often referred to as a burden.
Right.
As the burden of the kingdom of heaven.
They seem, when he is sweating back. Joshua, don't take it personally. I always do this. It's called I'm a sweater. It's part of my thing. Chicks dig it, believe it or not. But they refer to it as a burden, but it's a burden that the word burden, like it's like the yoke of Torah. They consider it's kind of like there's a great dignity in assuming this yoke, and that for Jews who are not interested, well then for some reason you're not up to it. You're not up to accommodating the sturdy yoke of Torah. I don't really buy that. I think that's a bunch of bullshit, because they'll try to tell this to my wife, who works 80 hours a week in the county hospital. Like, you're not a serious enough person, like for the yoke of Torah.
Right.
Yeah, she's like, whatever. Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of us feel that way. We're serious. We're willing to be serious about things that are worth being serious about. We're just not persuaded that the Jewish tradition, as it's been presented to us anyway, is one of those things.
Right. Huh.
But we're open to being persuaded.
Well, it definitely says it's a blessing and a curse. So the commandments are a blessing. So it doesn't say it's a blessing or a curse. It says it's a blessing and a curse. So it's both a burden and a blessing. So it's not either or. It's both.
It's both.
Which,
but it does seem that the blessing comes from observing the Torah, the mitzvot, and the curse is in straying.
Right. That's what it says, isn't it?
Yeah. So it gives no hint here that observing the mitzvot is a burden.
A blessing and
it's just a blessing,
right.
Which it may be. But what I'm suspicious of is the theory, as posited by Art Scroll, that this blessing is not just internal; it's externalized in a vibe of holiness and spiritual fulfillment. If that's true, then I'd say the vast majority of self-identified Frami Jews are doing something wrong because they don't give off that impression.
Now it says in the Shema that if you observe these commandments, that I will, I'll send the rain in its time.
Right.
Where is that? That's in this week. It's in this parsha as well. That I'll make sure that all these good things happen to you if you observe the commandments.
Right.
Do you think that's empirically true?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I guess that's open to debate. I mean, then that's kind of one of the neat things about Judaism, I guess, is that when I actually blogged about this on Juicy the other week, when bad shit happens to you, well, that's you must have done something wrong. You must have violated the mitzvot in some way, and then all the implicit and explicit threats in the scripture about what happens to you if you do that have been realized. So I was saying that for Tisha B'Av, that it's supposed to be a day in which we can mourn the tragedies of Jewish history, but when the lesson from the scripture seems to be that, well, those things happened because you screwed up this way for the first temple, you screwed up this way when the second temple was destroyed, and this is why the Jews were expelled from Spain. Well, what are we mourning? We're just mourning our own mess ups.
Right.
So, and I know that logic can be extended to the Holocaust as well, and is that the Holocaust was the consequence of some Jews' failure to properly observe the Torah. So, I mean, I guess it can be empirically true, but only if we assume that all these terrible things that happened throughout Jewish history were the predictable outcome of not observing the Torah.
Right, and it's not like the good Jews have gotten off. The observant Jews have gotten off better, and the secular Jews have really suffered. There's no real correlation in Jewish history.
Right. Yes, and so I guess we can. One possible hypothesis then is that even those Jews who have claimed or have attempted to observe the Torah have just done a piss poor job of it. Such a poor job that they are actually not in any. They're in just as egregious a violation of the Torah as secular Jews. So if that's true, then I think that would necessitate a really wholesale rethinking of the way in which Rabbinic Judaism tries to live out the Torah.
Right.
Because they would seem to be really screwing it up if that's true.
Another thing that jumps out at me is that it's so clear that the Torah was given for Jews to observe in the land.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just very Israel centric.